Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here amongst friends at the ADL. Thank you. A big thank you to all of you, but particularly to our close and dear colleagues, ADL National Chair Esther Epstein and CEO Jonathan Greenblatt, for inviting me here to speak today. As you've heard, my name is Marie van der Zyl, and I am the President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, the national representative body of the UK Jewish community. The Board of Deputies was founded in 1760, and we are the first port of call for government, the media, and others seeking to understand the interests and concerns of the UK's Jewish community. We are democratic in structure, with representatives called deputies elected to represent all of our synagogues and communal organisations around the UK. The president is elected every 3 years, and I am the second ever woman president, like Esther. And I am the very first member of a Reform synagogue. And there's more. For the first time, we have a majority of women leading our organisation, with 2 of my 3 vice presidents being women, Gillian Meron, and she is also the first woman to hold the position. In the Talmud, it says, every Jew is responsible for one another, and we consider ourselves to be allies and partners of the ADL and the American Jewish community. And right now, let's face it, you've heard from the other speakers, Jews need to show each other solidarity more than ever. The Board of Deputies shares ADL's deep commitment to fighting prejudice against Jewish people and the pursuit of justice and fair treatment for all. I am pleased to say that our partnership grows and deepens. Just last month, a delegation of ADL lay leaders, led by Esther and Jonathan, came to visit us in London. The UK's Jewish community really appreciated that ADL leaders travelled from far and wide to come to the UK in what are very politically challenging times. The trip included, as Jonathan said, meetings with leaders of the Jewish community and UK politicians who were at the forefront of fighting xenophobia and anti-Semitism. It means a lot to us as British Jews that we are not alone and that we have friends here in the United States upon whom we can rely. And of course, with the challenges that we have here, whether it's the racist murders in Pittsburgh or Powys, or anti-Semitism creeping into the extremes of the political right and left, we in the UK stand with you 100%. I have been asked to speak to you today about the spread of anti-Semitism in UK politics and the extraordinary situation in the UK where the main opposition party, the Labour Party, has become infected with anti-Jewish racism over the last 3 years. Just last week, in a shameful new development, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, a body set up by the Labour government, announced that things had become so bad in the Labour Party that they were going to launch a full-scale inquiry into anti-Semitism in the UK's main opposition party. It's taken long enough. The only other political party they have ever investigated was the racist, far-right British National Party. This shows the depths to which the Labour Party has sunk. Historically, many Jews were attached to Labour because it was more welcoming to immigrants and concerned with issues of social justice and the interests of the poor, much like the Jewish relationship with the Democrats in this country. As migrants, these values appealed to Jews, but even as the community flourished, many of these values continued to resonate with British Jews. The 4 years since the election of Jeremy Corbyn, to be frank, have changed all of that. Jeremy Corbyn is a man who came from the margins of politics and was best known to the Jewish community for his leading role in the Palestine Solidarity campaign. Whilst of course it's possible to support Palestinians without being anti-Semitic or indulging anti-Semites, Jeremy Corbyn's record in pursuing his agenda reveals, and this is very painful, he has consorted with anti-Semites, Holocaust deniers, and extremists. At one event in Parliament, he even addressed Hamas and Hezbollah as his friends. When he became leader in 2015, we at the Board of Deputies hoped that he would change his stance. We met him a few months after his election and tried to persuade him that his role as leader of the Majesty's opposition was different to his role as a backbench member of Parliament. The very next week, in February 2016, a scandal broke out at the Labour Society in England's historic Oxford University. The president of the society, who was not himself Jewish, resigned his position on the basis of anti-Semitism expressed by his fellow members. Labour's response, unfortunately, was a sign of things to come. They commissioned 3 inquiries. They were separate inquiries, and the first 2 findings were suppressed, no doubt because they were not to the leadership's office liking. The third was known as the Chakrabarti report, which was made public, and I described this in social media as a whitewash. You may have now heard that phrase. The reason for this is because it was so weak and flawed. In the meantime, a number of high-profile figures, including the Labour Member of Parliament and former Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, made anti-Semitic comments. Instead of decisive action, the party fumbled, floundered, made excuses, hid behind process and procedure. Since that time, barely a week, sometimes barely even a day, or even last night has gone by without some revelation or other of anti-Semitism. In Ken Livingstone's case, it took nearly 2 years before he was finally allowed to resign by the leadership's office, not even expelled, for saying and repeating Hitler was supporting Zionism. Tying the murder, the worst murder of Jews, with our movement for national liberation was a disgrace. Jeremy Corbyn had a response. He tweeted, "It was a sad day." With this permissive culture towards anti-Semitism, the number of incidents from party members began to mushroom, with a culture of cover-up in the disciplinary process and denial of the problem emanating from the leader downwards. Things got so bad that in April 2018, 1 year ago, it was revealed that Mr. Corbyn himself had defended an anti-Semitic mural. The Board of Deputies and our partner organisations, we called an unprecedented rally outside Parliament, something we've never done before. With 24 hours notice, and the week before Pesach, we thought we might get a few hundred people. But more than 2,000 people came, not just Jews, but leading figures in the Labour Party, leading figures in government, and our friends from different faiths. This direct action put anti-Semitism at the top of every news bulletin and on the front page of every newspaper. Now, it is not just the Jewish community tracking progress or lack of progress on the issue. It is the national media and the wider public worldwide. Despite all the provocations and frustrations, we try to remain in the UK constructive. After the demonstration, we wrote to Mr. Corbyn and we met with him. We told him what Labour needed to do. It needed to expel the racists, show leadership in tackling the problem and the culture of denial of anti-Semitism, speed up its disciplinary process, improve transparency, and show willingness to work together with the Jewish community to tackle these issues. And we did ask for an apology for his past terrorist associations, but of course that has never come. Defining anti-Semitism is a useful place to start, and we argued last summer that Labour should adopt and promote the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. As you may have read, unfortunately last summer, Labour spent the entire time telling us it knew better than us Jews what constituted anti-Semitism, and they tried time and time again to push a different, weaker definition. We held our nerve, and after exhausting every conceivable excuse, and even finding many of Jeremy Corbyn's own backers turning against him, the Labour Party finally decided to adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and all its examples. However, shortly after that, the Labour Party tried to add a caveat to undermine the definition. It has become clear over time that Jeremy Corbyn and those around him are prepared to withstand the huge political damage over anti-Semitism. Indulging anti-Semitism is the hill they are prepared to die on. Worse still, Jeremy Corbyn's inaction, his equivocation, has signalled to his supporters that anti-Semitism is acceptable. Just a few weeks ago, I found myself writing directly to Jeremy Corbyn when it emerged he had written a book forward for J.A. Hobson's 1902 book called Imperialism, which contained overt anti-Semitism and other racist references. I will read you an extract from the book. Hobson claimed that business is controlled, as far as Europe is concerned, chiefly by men of a single and peculiar race who have behind them many centuries of financial experience and are in a unique position to control the policy of nations. In his foreword of over 3,500 words, Jeremy Corbyn failed to condemn any anti-Semitism, despite condemning other forms of racism. When I made complaint directly to Jeremy Corbyn about his failure to challenge the anti-Semitism in the book, he wrote back to me dismissing the Jews' concerns as being based upon nothing than the mischievous representation of Labour's political opponents. Just last week, it transpired that in 2005, Jeremy Corbyn even defended former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's speech in which he threatened to wipe Israel off the map. He said it contained salient points and called for the speech as an opportunity to build dialogue on the issue of Palestine. I ask you, is it any surprise in such a context that when a Labour Party member was found to have posted an image from a white supremacist website of an alien creature with a Star of David on its back, smothering the Statue of Liberty, the party's head of compliance failed to take action because she claimed the image was not anti-Jewish, but just anti-Israel. Even on Friday just gone, we called for a member of the Labour Party's own ruling National Executive Committee, Peter Wilsman, to be expelled. He alleged that the Israeli embassy was behind the allegations of anti-Semitism. Last year, he was secretly recorded arguing against adopting the IRA definition. He ranted he would not be lectured by Jews who were Trump fanatics and denied the very existence of anti-Semitism. This is a man who is on Labour's National Executive Committee. Labour is in a dark place. It has become a home for anti-Semites and overt anti-Semitism. But in the UK, we can guarantee we will never allow this sickness to become normalised. We will fight and fight all the way. While tracking anti-Semitism on the far left, that's keeping us very busy, but we continue to be vigilant about right-wing anti-Semitism as well. Many mainstream politicians are indulging in reckless use of language, as we have seen in the writings of the terrorists who attacked Pittsburgh and the San Diego synagogues, raging against what they describe as cultural Marxism, invoking a code word globalist, or making anti-Semitic slurs against George Soros. We have challenged and will continue to challenge these right-wing bigots who trade in anti-Semitic or racist tropes, be they street thugs like the English Tommy Robinson or Hungary's Prime Minister Orban, whose representatives I have been to visit. The spread of the populist, anti-Jewish discourse is a global challenge for all Jewish people. In the United States, we hear it amongst some on the Republican, alt-right, and on the fringes of the Democratic Party. Anti-Semitism is not just a problem for Jews, it's a problem for wider society and the world. Thank you. Our former Chief Rabbi, Lord Sachs, has wisely said, "What starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews." And I can tell you that the UK Jewish community is not going anywhere fast. We need to stand together in unity as one and fight this anti-Semitism and racism. It will be tough, but I believe that we will succeed. Jewish history is nothing if not a triumph over adversity. Together, with your support, we will beat this. Thank you for listening to me today. Thank you.